guys, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a hot minute since I've done one of these videos. I feel like at the end of last month I was trying to find my footing as to what exactly I wanted to do with my channel and where I wanted to go, but I kind of still wanted to do a book video at least once a month, so I'm going to do them at the end of the month or at the beginning, technically. Oh, yeah, it is February. Technically, it is February. It's the first day of February. But I figured I would do one that encompassed all of the books. I'm sorry, my hands are probably in your face. That I tried to do a video that encompasses all of the books that I read in the month before. So this will be for January, and then go through my proposed TBR. I'm at the point right now where I'm like a little bit of a mood reader, so I don't really want to set in stone for sure what my TBR is, but I will give you a glimpse as to what is on that list. Without any further ado, let's just get into January. The first one is Elizabeth the Queen by Alison Weir, which I gave 5 stars. Now, Alison Weir, this is a historical monograph, so it is it's a historical non-fiction of Elizabeth I's life. Now, this only covers Elizabeth I's life from the time she is 25 when she comes to the throne in 1558 and when she dies at 69 in 1603. Weir does give you a little bit of backstory into the first 25 years of her life, which sets the tone as to why Elizabeth decided to be the Virgin Queen. This goes through all of the big beats in her reign, as long as all of the smaller ones that people don't know about. There are some things that I didn't know about when I read this, so that was great. It also takes Elizabeth down a peg. She takes her kind of off of her pedestal and goes through a little bit of her the psychosis of her. Not too terribly much, but she does pull down and gives you an aspect of not only who she is as queen, but who she is as a person, and how she as a queen can contradict who she is as a person, and how politically, how intriguing and intelligent Elizabeth really was. And it goes through her personal feelings and all of the political games and stuff that she played. It shows in this book that Elizabeth knew that she was hindered by her sex, but was not going to allow it to get in the way, and so she would be able to play the role of man if she needed to. So it's very interesting to see her breaking boundaries and stuff. It solidified her as my favorite monarch and a great role model. Is she perfect? No. No historical figure is ever going to be perfect. It's just a great read. If you want to get to know Elizabeth in her political and her historical setting, I would definitely recommend Alison Weir's Elizabeth the Queen. So yeah, first book, 5 stars, Elizabeth the Queen. The next one that I finished was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. This was part of my rereads for my Read and React series. If you've never checked those out, go over there and you can go check them out. I'll leave a link to the first one up there in the little corner somewhere. I started these back in November, and then I pushed through all of them in November with the exception of this one. Maybe I don't know, maybe I got bored and just wanted to take it really slow and pay attention and just pick it up. But then again, I was reading a lot of other things and doing other things at the same time. It was the holidays. I finally just finished Deathly Hallows for the Read and React series. The video for this particular book for Read and React, I think, is probably going to come out in, I think all of April will be this, because I do them every 2 weeks. That gives me time to be able to film them and edit them correctly. I gave it 5 stars. I really don't want to go into detail about the synopsis or anything because most people have already read this one. And since I'm not talking about any of the other books, I feel like it would be out of place to talk about this one. So Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, 5 stars. Great ending to an epic tale. Now we're getting into the books that I started and actually finished in January. And so the first one up is a 5-star read of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Now, it had been a long time since I had read Pride and Prejudice. I read it in college, completely freely. I did a minor in English literature, but I never actually read a single Austen novel in college. So I got to read this for pleasure, which was nice, and then going back and revisiting it because it's been a long time since I've actually sat down and read it, and I've seen the 2005 film way too many times, and the 1995 miniseries not as many times, but still enough. But I also chose to read this for my read and react as well, so look out for that in May. Yeah, probably in May. But Pride and Prejudice, what I said in my review on my Instagram page was that it is heralded as a romance novel, but I think if you put it in its in the context of its period, it's more of a contemporary fiction with romance added into it, because it does tackle with class and money and marriage and all of the things that would have ruled British society in the Regency period from, you know, the middle class up. Since Jane was from the lower portion of that class because she was the daughter of a clergyman, it all makes sense. I feel like reading this first as a romance kind of does a disservice to the novel itself. It's the same with most of the rest of hers. Like, yes, there are romantic elements to it and it is put there in the forefront, but I feel like it's more of a contemporary fiction if you put it in its historical context, because it is a commentary on a bunch of society, which this is a 5-star read, and it was first and then the next. Speaking of commentary on society, next I read was Emma, again a 5-star read. I have not read this one since my senior year of high school. Emma is my second favorite Austen novel, obviously Pride and Prejudice first, but Emma is my second favorite. I love Emma Woodhouse. A lot of people don't, because Jane Austen went on the record in saying that she wrote a character that only herself would love. I would like to disagree, because I think Emma Woodhouse is a wonderful character. She is a snob, and a snob and a half. And she uses and manipulates people just to be able to play with them. They're kind of like her dolls. And she has to go through this whole experience and learning that, you know, you can't go through life being a snob without having some kind of repercussions on you, and it's just, it's so good. I'm also going to do this for a read and react. I chose both of these to do first. Those will be the first two that come after the Harry Potter series, and I have so much to discuss with this and the film. It's such a good novel. It is hilarious. It's can be tedious, but it's supposed to be tedious. That's the whole point. And the commentary of the society in which Emma revolves around is insane. And I believe Emma is her wealthiest protagonist, and so you get to see a different form. And since this was also written much later in her life, I think this was the last novel that was, because I believe Persuasion and Northanger Abbey were written before, but they were published after her death. So this was the last novel that she actually wrote and finished at the latest point of her life. And you can absolutely tell from where she started at with Pride and Prejudice first impressions, and where she ends at with Emma. And it's just, it is so good. If you've never read either one of these two classics, it's great. Yes, you can say that they're romances, but again, I feel like calling them more of contemporary fiction for the Regency era that Jane was known to be in. So 5 stars all around. Love me some Austen. The next book I finished was Darkest Hour: How Churchill Brought Us Back from the Brink, the story behind the motion picture by Anthony McCarten. Now, Anthony McCarten is the screenwriter for for the film that's directed by Joe Wright. I did not score this. I had to on my Goodreads, because Goodreads makes you score it, but I don't feel like scoring books that I'm reading for research. Now, I am in the process of trying to be able to develop a PhD research dissertation, so I don't want to give them ratings. But Darkest Hour, Anthony McCarten puts all of the information that he researched into the film, and he really hits home that he really wants to focus, and it actually shows in the film as well, that he focuses on the rhetoric of Winston Churchill, whether that's a commentary on some other people's rhetorics at the time that this came out, which would have been 2017. So the script would have been written in 2016. Whether that's a commentary on someone else's rhetoric, I'm not going to judge, but this book gives you insight into how and why the film wanted to come about and discuss the rhetoric of Winston Churchill and how through this man of words, he was able to pull all of the British people together and stand by the disaster of what was happening on the continent in Europe in 1940. So it's great. It's a really good read. It's more entertaining than I thought it was going to be. So I would definitely recommend this. And for my dissertation, I'm hoping to look at monographs and films and how films are based on monographs. So there you go. No stars, but great read. The next book I finished was Death Comes to Pemberley by P.D. James. Now this is a mystery novel, really. Can't really call it a thriller, it's more of a mystery novel. I gave it 3.5 stars, mainly because I thought that 30 to 40% of it was a little bit redundant, especially given that most people who are going to seek this out have probably read Pride and Prejudice. I understand that it's fine to give some kind of refresh or rehash of the plot of Pride and Prejudice to be able to set the scene, but I didn't really need a prologue and extra bits and bits throughout the first third of this novel. I didn't need it. If you said it once, you've already said it, but overall, it was okay. I mean, I really have nothing to complain about besides that. I don't know. I've seen the BBC miniseries so many times and I decided to crack open the book just to see how different they were, and they are pretty different. I mean, everything, obviously they hit the same story beats, but it is relatively different from the miniseries, which I was actually very proud of. I was very happy with that. I do think that Elizabeth is underutilized in this novel, mainly because I am spoiled for the BBC miniseries and she's actually pretty integral to the plot, whereas here, she's not so much. She's in like the first half of the novel. It switches perspective between her and Darcy, and that's fine. I absolutely love that. I really did, but I don't know. I think it could have been better. It's sad that P.D. James is not with us because she, in creating this, she started name dropping characters from Persuasion and Emma, and I got really mad, in a good way. I got mad. I was insanely shocked that she put them in there. So she's created this Austen universe where all of Austen's characters live. I mean, yes, they were all written like by her and it could be all in the same universe, but like Pride and Prejudice was first written during the towards the tail end of the 1790s. Emma was written in the mid 18 teens, so it's weird to think that they're all around like the same age and stuff. So I would have much preferred that novel where all of, like, it's a whole universe and they all get together, and that I would prefer that. But it's not bad. Even knowing who the murderer is and how everything is, it's fine to read. I will say that I thought that the murderer kind of came out of left field. Like, there are like little bitty hints that something else is going on, but I think the murderer came out of left field from the book's perspective. Whereas in the miniseries, you can kind of, you could see where they were going by the way that the actors like portray, like how they show and how they're feeling. I don't know. I thought it could have been better, but it's fine. 3.5 stars. It's fine. So the next one that I read was another 5-star, which was Night by Elie Wiesel. Now, I think everyone's teetered on the fact as to whether this is a memoir or if this is like a fictional memoir, but honestly, I really don't care. I would prefer to think of it as someone who has written something that they've been through, whether it's all true, because memory does weird things to you and you can't remember everything at the same time, but especially when you're having to relive a trauma. But I will give him the benefit of the doubt because this is absolutely stunning and beautiful and harrowing and just insanely good. Night is told from Elie Wiesel's perspective and how he was forced from his home in Transylvania, from Transylvania, present day Romania, and how he was forced out into the ghettos, and then eventually how he ended up in Auschwitz during the Holocaust, and then his final march until he was liberated. It's a very short book. It's only a little over 100 pages, like 115 maybe. And I would definitely recommend, if you get this one, I would definitely recommend reading his Nobel Peace Prize at the end and the preface. I would read both of those after I read the novel. Again, through Libby, I got to listen to this one on audiobook, and it was just, it's 4 hours. I think I sped it up by 1.25 just a bit, so it was like 3 hours, just a little over 3 hours to listen to. And I honestly don't think I would have been able to get through it if I didn't listen to it on audiobook, because there are just some things that I don't want to read, and it's just, it is really beautifully written and told, and it's just, it's insane to think that this actually happened. Whether, you know, like I said, memory can go different ways, but it's interesting to see a Holocaust survivor write and talk about the Holocaust and having to put into perspective that, you know, this really happened. There was a bunch of stuff going on that nobody paid attention to, whether they didn't know or because they just decided not to know. So there's a lot of talk of complacency in this novel, and it's really good. Even in his speech and in his preference, he talks about complacency, and it's really good. I did read this for Holocaust Remembrance Day, which was the 27th. I had to think for a minute. It was the 27th. So because it's such a short novel, I figured I could do it out in a day, and I did. It was great. It was wonderful. But I definitely will recommend this one. It is just, I have no words to describe it, which is exactly what I wrote in my review, is that I had no words. So I still don't have words, and it's been like a week. So 5 stars for this memoir, like fictional memoir, whatever you want to call it. I'm just confused as people on what the genre is, but read it. Next up is the 2.5 star that I have, which is Darcy's Story by Janet Elmer. I will give credit to where credit is due. The scenes with Darcy that are not in the original Pride and Prejudice, because this is a Pride and Prejudice retelling from Darcy's point of view, all of the scenes with Darcy that don't have to do with the original Pride and Prejudice, I think are the best parts of this book, which is sad because it's only about 30%. I think that part is great. She does try to write in the way that Austen did, because a lot of the original novel is copied and pasted into this, and I think that that is a shame. I feel like she should have adapted the novel rather than just copying and pasting and then just changing stuff, which I find to be the problem with things like Grey and Midnight Sun and basically any novel that's ever been just reproduced from the original content. So it's a shame. It really is a shame, because it brought nothing extra to the story. Even the 1995 BBC miniseries gives you some perspective from Darcy that's not in the book, and it did a better job than this did, so 2.5 stars. Now, my final book for January is, bear with me, Talking Right, How Conservatives Turned Liberalism into a Tax-Raising, Latte-Drinking, Sushi-Eating, Volvo-Driving, New York Times-Reading, Body-Piercing, Hollywood-Loving, Left-Wing Freak Show by Jeffrey Nunberg. Whew, that is a title. This book was published in 2006, so it's a little out of date, which is weird, but it was published in 2006 obviously after the election of 2004. What Nunberg does is, this is a political linguistics book because he's a linguist, and what he does is he explains the way that conservatives talk about race, religion, class, economics. There's something else that I don't remember what it was, but how he talks about how basically they've turned these into political talking points, and how what rhetoric they use behind talking about all of these issues, and how they've hijacked words like freedom, patriotism, liberalism, how they've turned things on their heads. And he also talks about the way that they deal, or how they feel, with big business, the liberal elite, and the liberal media. And so what he's done is he brings it into a new perspective. Granted, like I said, it was published in 2006. He brings this into perspective of how exactly the rhetoric has become what it is today. He does talk about how the Republicans have created their own language around the political party, and how the Democrats don't have one, and the parts of the language that they do have, it's not that good. So he does talk about both parties, but this is heavily on the Republican Conservative Party in the United States. Now, if you were to gander a guess as to when the language of the Republican Party started to turn, you would not be wrong in thinking it was the Nixon administration, because it is the Nixon administration. That is where everything with the modern Republican Party starts. But he does go back further in history, and he does talk about earlier languages of the formation of the Republican Party from the Jim Crow era and stuff like that, because between the 30s and the 70s is when it was politically messy in America, and there was the beginning of a political shift between the Democratic and the Republican Party. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Yeah. I actually started this one as well in November because I wanted to finish it for the election, but it's a lot of information to take in at once, and the way that my headspace was I could not sit down and read this. I had to give it time and let it breathe. But I finally finished it, and 4.5 stars. It's great, 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 great. If you want to know anything about the Republican rhetoric before Orange Man, here you go. Okay, so for February, I don't want to get in too much of what I'm going to be reading. It's just going to be a big TBR. I will say that I have started 3 books so far. The first one I've started is Diana Gabaldon's Outlander, and I'm only 100 pages in. I just got to part 2, and this is my second time trying to attempt to read this. The first time I was in my MA, and I just didn't have time to read the whole thing. My goal is to read the entire series of 8 books that are out so far, because there's still 2 more. I want to read all 8 by the end of the year. The next one that I've already started reading is Dunkirk, The History Behind the Motion Picture by Joshua Levine. I am only up to chapter 2. This is a story of survival and, yeah, just potential dissertation research. The third one that I've already started is Becoming by Michelle Obama. That kicks off the first book that is on audio that I don't own a copy of, and it's the first book that I'm reading for Black History Month. I'm not too terribly far into it. I'm on chapter 3, so it'll be fun. For Black History Month, I have 3 physical copies of books, which is Tendu Song by Adolphe Atogun. I'm going to tell you now, I am completely sorry, and I apologize for mispronouncing anyone's names. But Tendu Song is a retelling of Orpheus and Eurydice set in Nigeria. The next one is The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr. This is supposed to be a story of 2 slaves on a southern plantation who are gay, and a priest comes and tells them that they are that homosexuality is a sin, and they're supposed to cope with what's going on, how the plantation is supposed to cope with them as a couple, I believe. Don't quote me on that. This is why I wasn't going to give synopsis. And then the last one that I have is The Office of Historical Corrections by Daniel Evans, and this is a collection, it's a novella and a collection of short stories on being Black in America. Now, the other ones that I do have are on this list. I'm just gonna rapid fire them. I don't entirely know which ones I'm going to get through. I want to get through the 3 physical copies that I have, but these I'm just going to pick and choose from. Please let me know in the comments if there's a particular book out of this list that you want me to read, or there's a particular book that's not on this list that you'd like me to read for Black History Month. Let me know, but this is what I have so far. I have Becoming by Michelle Obama, If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin, White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, How Long Till Black Future Month, N.K. Jemisin, Intercepted by Alexa Martin, Stamped by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi, The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson, Beneath the Tamarind Tree by Isha Cisse, Black Klansman by Ron Stallworth, The Sun Does Shine by Anthony Ray Hendon and Laura Love Hardin, The Civil Rights Movement by Eric Brown, Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson, Between the World and Me by Tanisha Coates, How to Be Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi, Born a Crime by Trevor Noah, The Last Black Unicorn by Tiffany Haddish, The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, Queenie by Candace Carty Williams, Dear Martin by Nick Stone, and Homegoing by Yagaisi. Is that correct? Again, I completely apologize for any names that I have mispronounced. Like I said, it is a lot to go through, and I don't think that I'm going to get to all of them. There's way too many. I hope I have a variety. I think I tried to choose everything from YA and, you know, adult general content. Yeah, here we go. Who knows? Please let me know down in the comments what you think I should read for the month of February, for Black History Month. That would be great. Otherwise, I'm not reading anything else. I would say I'd see you at the end of the month for another one of these. That's when I'll see you, but I'm sure I will see you next on Friday. Yes, I will see you on Friday for WandaVision. Bye, guys!